Greetings nerdy list aficionados and welcome back to Top 10 Nerd. Today we're taking a look at another X-Men villain, the Shadow King. Which fantastic villain name. You're intrigued just by hearing it. The Shadow King first appeared in the Uncanny X-Men number 117 in 1979, a character spawned from the relaunch of the X-Men in the 70s, and one that stayed part of the mythos ever since. The Shadow King has quite the interesting history, so here on Top 10 Nerd, we're gonna share some facts with you. I'm Sasha, and these are the top 10 scary Shadow King facts you need to know. Let's get started. Number 10. Telepath. When the Shadow King first arrived on the scene, he was important because he was said to be the only telepath to rival Charles Xavier, who at the time was the most powerful telepath around. The Shadow King was said to be a true Omega level telepath, and as a result, the battle he has with Charles on the astral plane has stakes, even though it's also over very quickly. It is also one of the key moments in shaping Xavier's identity. In their first battle, Xavier defeats Amal Farouk, aka the Shadow King, and he slumps over, seemingly dead. Because remember, the mind makes it real. Telepathic fights are really exciting for the people partaking in them, but not for the people watching them outside on the regular plane. Just two people sitting there staring at each other. Number 9. Astral Entity. That battle with Xavier was far from the end of the Shadow King. In fact, afterwards it was revealed that some of the things that had been hinted at were in fact true. The Shadow King has been alive for far longer than Farouk, who was in fact just a host body for what the Shadow King had become, or perhaps always had been, which was an astral entity. This was a creature existing on the astral plane, looking for ways to exert malicious control over the physical realm. Why? Because it could. In this form, the Shadow King resembled a monster, a being of energy whose shape matched the horror of its environment. I love the Shadow King. Number 8. Manifestation. This astral entity form was actually a very natural manifestation, or rather evolution, from the first concept of what the Shadow King would be. At the start, Farouk claimed he was the manifestation of the dark side of human consciousness, spawned from the first ever nightmare, feeding on the shadows, almost like a disease. A concept that would be blended along with his modern iterations quite expertly in the show Legion. Number 7. Cause of the X-Men, or one of them. So one of the questions fans just getting into X-Men often have is, just why did Professor X start the X-Men in the first place? The answer is often, oh, for a safe haven for mutants, from the betterment of all mankind, like, as a whole, not human or mutant, but both and beyond. But then some have the question of, okay, but why make them fight? Aren't they kind of like child soldiers? Well, for a time, the reason the X-Men were created was because of the Shadow King. When Charles meets Farouk in Cairo, it had been his first encounter with an evil mutant. Not someone in hiding or persecuted for their abilities, but a monster. Someone using their abilities to hurt human and mutant alike, and it frightened him. It made him realize that there needed to be a force out there to protect people, again, human and mutant. And also that mutants had to be taught to defend themselves, even from other mutants. Just because they were all mutants didn't mean they would all get along, for no group is a magical monolith where everybody agrees and has the same ideas. No Stepford shenanigans. Number 6. Astral Host. One of the terrifying facts about the Shadow King is his ability to possess host bodies, and still channel his powers through them. He does try to pick bodies with latent telepathic abilities to boost his own, but once the Shadow King has you, your life as yourself is essentially over. The Shadow King can also influence many bodies at once telepathically, but he prefers choosing one single host. He can also even repair the host body he is in using his energies, but this is risky for him. Destroying his host body with him in it can disperse his energy, and while he can and will gather it again, it can take him a while to do so. Years. So you can buy yourself some much needed time by doing this, if you can pull it off. Number 5. Control other telepaths. One of the things that makes the Shadow King so dangerous is his ability to control and jump into the minds specifically of telepaths. Telepathy is a powerful ability that requires a strong moral code to not just dive fully into the dark side. So when one finds their mind hijacked by the Shadow King with that much power, it can be a truly terrifying experience. The Psy War arc played with this concept, even if this one ended with Psylocke locking the Shadow King inside a prison in her mind. Think Dr. Sleep, only because of this she wasn't able to use her powers again. And he was released when she died, but like most characters, she got better. Number 4. Storm's lover. It is through the manipulation of the child Storm, aka Aurora Monroe, that Charles encounters the Shadow King for the first time. Farouk was using her and other children as thieves, but there is a universe where he and Storm were lovers. Can you guess which universe it is? I think you know the universe, the one that did stuff sometimes just to push the boundaries. A universe where a prominent and beloved character could be eaten on panel. It's the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610, because why not? In the Ultimate Verse, the Shadow King was the leader of a group of shadow thieves, and him and Storm were lovers. They were like more equivalent different ages, it's not quite that creepy. But it is especially creepy when you think about the fact that the 616 Shadow King has a very demeaning view of women. He views them very much as pawns to be used for his pleasure. He would often envision them as actual slaves attached to him with chains like Jabba the Hutt. In all fairness, in the Ultimate verse, he didn't start out as the Shadow King. Here he was just a shady thief until Storm accidentally electrocuted him, which sent him to another dimension where the creatures he met turned him into the Shadow King. Number 3, Legion. The Shadow King was largely the main antagonist of the FX series Legion, a show that took the risk of telling the story of David Haller, the son of Charles Xavier, despite not having many rights to everything, including terms, but they still managed to pull it off. And they created a small, self-contained X-Men world that highlighted the terror and multifaceted aspects of the Shadow King. The Shadow King, after being defeated by Xavier, latched onto the mind of his son as an infant, lurking inside there, infecting his memories and cultivating his and David's powers, rendering David mentally ill, something he was already tending towards. He hides himself in memories as false people and would appear as a grotesque, bloated, drowned corpse inside his mind the few times David could glimpse him. The Shadow King would seek to control David so that he could reach his full potential of essentially godhood. This was given the full scope of his powers, which in Legion's case expand to being able to manipulate reality itself. The show pulled so many Shadow King scenes directly from the panels. Seriously, props for giving some love to the Shadow King. Number 2, Immortal, kind of. The Shadow King is an entity, not existing in a realm governed by time, and hence kind of immortal. The Shadow King remains a threat and will remain a threat, I mean, as long as writers remember to write him / want to. He's up there with Proteus on the hard to get rid of scale, even though now they claim he is destroyed for good, which I say, sure Jan, no, bring back the terror of the Shadow King. But I mean, I guess that'd be kind of hard with the Dawn of X era that we have going on, but maybe he could join Krakoa too, I mean, why not? And then just take over the minds of the earth and force all the mutants to Krakoa instead of them having to send guerrilla teams to invade nations. Any of the mutants there don't want to go, because some of them do and some of them don't. I mean, yes, liberation, all mutants in one place, separate children from families, mutant pride. That arc is really interesting, it's just also not acknowledging many things. But hey, what else is new? Number 1, A Man Called X. The Shadow King is largely responsible for the return of Charles Xavier. After Xavier was killed by Cyclops, the Shadow King gathered up all of his essence that he could find and used it to bring him to the astral plane. This was so that he could fight him over and over again. But it was him who actually led to Charles's eventual resurrection simply as X, which is Charles inside of Phantom X's body actually. This is why he's walking and also why he's wearing Cerebro on his head all the time. The more you know. So those were some scary facts about the Shadow King. I hope that you're now intrigued by this classic villain. Let me know your favorite villain who is allegedly gone for good down below. I'm Sasha and thanks so much for watching Top 10 Nerd. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe and hit the bell notifications so that you never miss a vid. And we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.